Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.
Good evening and welcome to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and excited to be hanging out with you once again on Tuesday evening. As you know, there's so many things that you need to know as a business owner that it's impossible to know them all. But what we try to do here is at least introduce you to other business leaders who have been successful across the board in terms of all disciplines. So that will build your knowledge and then build your leadership skills, because at the end of the day, your business can only go as far as you're prepared to lead it. So that's really what the show is all about. We've already crossed 3 years. I can't believe it went that fast, but definitely enjoying it. Hopefully you're enjoying it too. And I just want to thank everybody who tunes in on the regular. So tonight, our guest is Christine Clifton. She's a business conversation expert, and her business is Mindful Business Matters. But what we're going to be talking about is get ready, get set, and flow. There's a lot of things that are key for business owners to really be able to move forward successfully in business and in life. So we're going to be talking about some of that today. But I'm going to let Christine share a little bit about her background, how she got to where she is, and we'll go from there. Hey, Christine, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, and congrats on 3 years. That's amazing.
Thank you. So yeah, thanks for joining as well. I'm excited to really have a chance to chat with you about what you're doing and how you help business owners. Definitely. There's so many things that business owners need to know. So definitely being able to do what you do is great. But take a few minutes to introduce yourself. Talk a little bit about your journey, how you got from where you are to, or from where you were to where you are, and describe sort of where you are right now.
Sure thing. Well, I took a traditional path like a lot of people do in a corporate role, and I started out in managing restaurants. I moved to department stores, and then I switched over to human resources in department stores. Then I switched over to human resources in insurance. Then I moved to HR in chemicals. Then I moved into sales in chemicals, actually in that same company. And that path was roughly about a 20-year path in corporate. And I knew the sales role was a temporary one. We had some changes going on in the company, and it was a decision that this would be an intermediate role to get the salespeople ready for a new way to sell as the changes were coming in the company. So that was an interesting thing to switch over from HR to sales in the same company. So different obstacles to overcome in that one. And I just had a feeling in my gut that it wasn't going to be where I was going to stay. The changes in the company weren't aligned with where I wanted to be as a professional. I wasn't able to find roles within the new entity that seemed to really light me up. And I had been working with my own coach for a couple of years in that sales role because it was a very matrixed reporting responsibility. So I really didn't have one boss. I had like six of them. And so my coach was my one kind of go to, I've got your back kind of person. And we began looking at my strengths and seeing how they could be possibly used if I were to go out on my own. And that's when we decided that I would fit a great profile to be a coach. So I left corporate and started my first coaching practice. I failed miserably. And it, you know, gosh, when I thought I was all prepared, I just wasn't prepared. And this is, again, like I look back on journeys and I see this in my clients as well. But if I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't be where I am today, helping people. So, so I gave that a good year trying to gain traction in that first coaching practice. And then I decided to open a wellness studio. And I brought all these great folks together in the wellness studio. And when I opened, comparative to plan, my numbers were like way up here. And as the year went along, the numbers started to go opposite than what the plan was. I started big and it started declining instead of the other way around. And that was a little bit of a conundrum, for me as well. I'd done tons of business planning and sales planning when I was a sales coach. So I had already done that part, been there, done that. So I needed to make a decision because I was leaking funds and there didn't seem to be a shift on the horizon. And so I made the tough decision to close that one and took some time to regroup. Quite honestly, it was pretty much a 24/7 job because of the type of role it was, being an owner operator. And then when I came back, I thought, I'm going to do things a little differently this time. And so I re-entered my networking circle, which I had built before I took my break. And I was just listening to people talking in networking meetings. And I had hosted a regular mastermind group actually before I left and took my break. And I had this idea that I wanted to run by them. And when I did, the person sitting next to me turned to me and said, Christine, if you do that business, I will be your first client. And I was like, yes, what's better than to start a business that somebody wants immediately instead of that business that we really want to do, but we have no idea, if somebody wants. And so I gave that business, it was almost like a warm call appointment setting marketing service for solo service entrepreneurs. So it wasn't heavy cold calling like the telemarketing companies. It was, that stack of business cards that are gathering dust on the corner of your desk. Like, what have you done with those? People you've met, but you haven't followed through. So, so it was a lot of fun, but I was also finding that my target audience wasn't going to be able to afford what I needed to receive in order not only to pay myself, but I needed a support person because there was a lot of admin involved. So, what I did was as I built that practice and started getting the leads in my practice and having appointments set for those entrepreneurs, I was checking in on their close rates. Like, what's your conversion rate? How many of these appointments are you closing? And the numbers they were giving me verbally were, horrible. And I'm like, well, what did you actually say to them in the conversation? And somebody, somebody said one thing to me and I said, oh my gosh, we need to change that. We need to get you some better languaging, some better verbiage. So essentially what I did was shifted kind of the marketing slash virtual assistant stuff over to my assistant. That actually became her business. And then I started consulting and coaching with those service entrepreneurs around sales and sales conversations. And like everything, it isn't just about the sale, it's about the development
Okay.
before, right? So it kind of grew from there, and that has become my body of work today.
Okay, excellent. Well, you covered several great examples of things that I always talk about. So
Good.
I just want to sort of go back on a
Yeah,
couple.
please.
And one of them is generally business owners are most successful on their third business. So
Really? Okay.
so you hit it, you were like right on time, because there's a lot of things you got to learn, and it takes a little while to figure it out. And some of the lessons you can be taught, some of the lessons you just have to learn. And a lot of times you learn faster by losing money. So it makes you
Little fire under the tush,
yeah, a
right?
little fire when you start thinking about it. So so I thought that was a great explanation. Of course I always talk about sales and marketing being your most important job as a business owner. And most business owners first don't know that. Maybe don't know that there's a difference between sales and marketing. Don't have any training in sales and marketing, but they're still out there trying to sell. And given how important that is, how much better could your business be if you were prepared to be able to do that successfully? So I'm glad that that's something you help business owners do, because that can make all the difference in the world for them. So tonight I just want to sort of dig in, really focus on that side, because I think the more people can learn about how to communicate and manage their sales process more effectively, the better. So we're going to do that. But before we do that, I'm going to play a quick commercial. So we got a few things going on. Number one, I've launched my Small Business Pro Network. So definitely people are welcome to join. So I'll share that. And then we also have our Power Breakfast coming up later in the year, or October 27th, and networking on the 26th. So later on, I'll sort of show you a little bit more about that. But here's a little bit about the community, and I encourage you to join. What's the ultimate business ecosystem for helping entrepreneurs to accelerate and grow their businesses? Of course, it's the Small Business Pro Network.
I got to say, I'm glad I trusted you with your plan, because I like the plan, but we are, there's no guarantees, and it is a journey, but we're getting there, and we're making real solid progress.
Andrew helped me with the growth plan for my business, and also in the financial side. So we're able to get loans.
I thought it was great, good practical information that is good for both entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs. Andrew breaks it down in a very understandable way.
You need someone that's going to tell you how to get things done, how to move your business forward, how you can run your business like a pro.
I've known Andrew for 10 years, but when we started working together, I got to see the master's mind. And he's been helping me with my financials, making sure everything's together, what's working versus what's not working in my business, so that I'm working on my business and not in my business, period. Join the Small Business Pro Network to learn from the experts, collaborate with like-minded entrepreneurs, and access valuable resources for growth. Hello, I'm Andrew Frazier. My mission is to help 1 million business owners by 2028 to sell more, make more, and get financing. I've worked with more than 1,000 business owners one-on-one, helping them to grow revenue, increase profit, and obtain financing. I created the Small Business Pro Network to help you achieve your goals faster and easier. Join before Labor Day to become a charter member for free. Visit www.sbpronetwork.com. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Okay, well, welcome back. Of course, it is after Labor Day, so it's not free anymore, but we do have discounted pricing, so you may want to take advantage of that. But
I'm here with Christine, talking small business, and really want to talk a little bit about, you run into a lot of business owners. What are the most common sales challenges that they have?
Oh, there's a long list. So, what I like to do is kind of start in the path of what, like, leading into the sales, which, especially in local business, when I lived in New Jersey for, 20 years, um, that was my circuit. I was on the speaking circuit there in New Jersey. And so everyone was networking, right? So, to me, networking is it's marketing. It's offline marketing, but it is another subset of offline being in person. And it's about what you say, how you say it, where you're taking them. And what I was noticing was that the business owners were just showing up to events because, there was a good breakfast buffet, or that their best buddy from golfing goes to this event, all the time. So I was just hearing all these stories that people were just networking. And then I'd hear people say, well, I'm gonna, you know, let my membership lapse because I'm not getting anything out of that group. Or, I'm not going to go anymore because, I'm not getting anything out of that group. And when I'll ask them, well, what does getting something out of the group mean? They couldn't even articulate really, what that meant other than like new business, right? And there's an old urban legend. I don't know how true this is, but some dude was holding a big networking event and he's like, everybody stand up if you're here to sell something. And then everybody stands up in the room. And then he's like, okay, everybody sit down. He goes, everybody stand up who wants to buy something. And nobody stands up. Because we're not there to do that. We're networking is like the dating process of leading into sales. And so I used to teach dance actually. And one of the biggest things that get my dancers is learning how to turn in dance. And when I was learning to turn, I realized that it wasn't my turn technique that was off. It was my step before the turn that was off. And so if you're off balance there, you're going to be off balance in the turn. And so that's what I look at networking as. Networking is the step before the sale or before at least the initial one-on-one. And if you're off balance there, then you're going to be off balance kind of moving them through. And so what I found was very few, especially service entrepreneurs, which is my specialty, had any type of the technical term, I guess, today is customer journey, very, very vague customer journey idea for the clients they wanted to serve. So when you don't have that, you don't know where you're taking them. It's like everybody piling in the car and going, okay, where are we going? And just winging it. So you're going to get somewhere, but who knows if it's aligned with what you really want to do. So I like to call that spastic marketing. So business owner, when people want to start a business, the first thing they want to do is build a website and get a business card. Like for whatever reason, that's the thing. And it just hurts my heart when I see them throw multiple five figures at their website and however much, at the business card. And 6 months in, they realize that there's a different focus they really, want to be focusing on, or a slightly different tweak about the business that they're doing. So I'm about getting directionally correct. Like, yes, get started, but get started in a way that you can make a shift and I call it agility. You want to be agile because sometimes you lead your business, but sometimes it leads you and it will guide you. So when I first started this work, I was, I wanted to save the world, and like everybody needed help with sales conversations. But what I began to see when I really looked at the psychographic, especially of my ideal client, was that what was common is that they were what I call highly relational. So these are folks who care about relationships like more than the to-do list. So they're not going to be the ones at a networking event, dealing out their business cards like a poker hand. They're just not going to do that. They're not going to want to offend anybody. They're not going to want to soil a relationship. They're not going to want people to think badly of them. And so that is admirable that they have that value, but it can also dramatically get in the way of what they need to do in terms of building, their sales. I call it an ecosystem, sales ecosystem.
Okay. Okay. Great. Now, definitely, I think one of the first things I always talk to people about is planning. And the first part of planning is analysis. And you talked about figuring out who is your ideal customer, who should you target, and that's like the first step that any business should do. So definitely, a lot of people have challenges with that. How were you able to figure out your target market, and what was it that finally helped you find the right target market? Because many times you're working on it, but it takes a minute to find the right people. How did that
Yeah,
work out?
sure. Yeah, that's a great question. For me, it actually happened a bit more organically. And the reason I think it worked that way for me is that because I'm also a highly relational person, that I was naturally drawing those people around me in my networking and my sales efforts. And so they felt something from me that was, now I was raised in the South and I was operating up in New Jersey. So I think that also provided a little bit of a difference. Nothing against New Jerseyans, but I had a little different approach to socializing and talking with people. And so I think they just really naturally gravitated towards that. So I actually took like a very expensive group business coaching program one year. And when I got in that program and they were looking at my psychographic, she said to me, looks like you're attracting a lot of introverts. So you should really change your messaging to say that you're helping introverts. And I call myself a social introvert. Like if my MBTI is like right at 49 introvert, it's almost really an ambivert. And and I thought, okay, that's interesting. So I changed my messaging for when I went networking. And my lead funnel just dried up big time, just dried up. And so I, trudged forth and did the thing that I was being told to do. But at some point, I said, I can't continue this. Like I can't. This is not sustainable. And so I switched it back to what it was before, and the leads started coming in again. So the one thing it did do was give me that opportunity to say, okay, obviously what I'm doing worked. Why? Why is it working? What are the characteristics of all of these clients that are consistent? And so I started making a list of the psychographic, and that, was just consistent across the board where they were, relationship first. They were, wanted deeper conversation. They wanted long, loyal connections with their customers. They like to build their own strong network within a network. So there's a lot longer list, but that was, part of it. And so that's what I began to target. My business at that time, when I switched, the third business, it was called client centric growth. So even the name is more organic, and my logo was a bamboo plant. And the story on my website was that bamboo takes 3 years to root, but once it does, it grows 1.5 to 3 feet a day, and it becomes one of the most sustainable, crops that you could farm. And so to me, that's the perfect analogy of my highly relational psychographic, is that you're going to take time to root and get to know and build your network. And once you do, it's just going to produce fruit for you, just over and over and over and over. And that's how, I came about doing it. So mine was a bit more organic. Um, a quick story that might be interesting for your listeners just is I had a business owner come to me. She was actually a past client of mine, and just out of the blue, she's like, I have this one thing that I just need, just like one session, will you do that for me? And I'll do that for past clients for sure. And so what she brought me was a class she wanted to teach, and she told me all about it. And I asked her who her target market was. I asked her what had been successful in the past, all these different questions. And I was kind of like, I guess you might call it, the class doctor or the business doctor. So I was able to diagnose for her that the title was a little too esoteric. It was a little too ethereal. We needed to get it really grounded. We needed the languaging to be more accessible and tangible. And we wanted to do a lead in to the program instead of just starting with the program itself. And with the program, we wanted a different class to start first out of the 4 that are part of the program. And all of those decisions were made based on the answers she gave me as I was asking her those questions about her target market, who she's serving, what's worked well in the past, all of that. And so at the end of the session, she's like, oh my gosh, like the fog is lifted. Like it is so clear now. And this feels so good. Like I'm off and running. So that's all she needed was a little bit of, I don't know, sprucing up, I suppose.
Okay. All right. No, definitely important. We talked about, analysis, really figuring out who your target market is. The next step is, once you know who that is, developing the right message for your target market. And every word matters that you say, everything that you do in the message. So, first getting the target market right, then getting the message right. And sometimes you're going to have to try multiple times. But the better you analyze the situation, the closer you're going to get to where you need to be, the faster. So,
I agree.
It's good that you were able to help her do that, which is key. The next step is reaching your target market. So once you got your target market, you got a message you're going to say to them. How do you reach the target market? How do you help people figure out how to reach their target market?
Sure. I have a little bit of a different approach than we'll cut that out. Oh, I clicked on something, unfortunately. Sorry, on my computer. So I have a little different take than a lot of traditional business coaches on this, and the reason is that when I first started, I had a business coach tell me, Christine, people don't care what you believe; they only care about what they're going to get from your work with them. And I decided to subscribe to that because I didn't really know any better. And so I started spending all this time trying to figure out, what do they want? What do they want? What do they want? And that, I don't have a crystal ball in front of me. I was a new business owner, and I felt like I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, like just doing all of the things, but not really seeing any really result from it. And so I had to scale back a minute and go, okay, what do I want to do? What part of this work is my sweet spot? What part of this work really lights me up? What part of this work is going to keep me energized and motivated as I'm doing this work? And that's where I start with my clients, actually. I sometimes I have these little sayings. People say I'm like Mrs. Seuss instead of Dr. Seuss. And so one of my sayings is, who are you? Who are they? What do you do? What do you say? And if you can imagine like 3 circles, like a Venn diagram, but 3 circles. So who are you? Who are they? What do you do? And what do you say? And the what do you say is the tiny little dot that all 3 circles cross over in the middle. That's what you say. You're always going to get outliers, but we know by that diagram that the little flower design, is the outliers that you're going to choose, not the ones that are filling the rest of the circle. So you want to honor both what you want to do, what lights you up, what aspect of this you want to be doing, and what it is that the market is looking for. So that's a little bit what that story was about, because her target market had told her in the past what they wanted. So, she needed to reach them. So she's a holistic practitioner. And, where do you reach holistic practitioners? In Jersey, right? One of the big ones is, Natural Awakenings magazine. That's one of them. But there's also, you could partner with local functional medicine doctors, or go to a yoga studio and see if they want to partner to have the program there. So you want to look at the psychographic of your audience and say, what's important to them, what are their attitudes, what causes do they support. um, and so when you answer some of those questions, that's going to guide you in the right direction. So if for example you are, and I can speak to this because I oversaw a 100-person sales team in corporate. So if you've got if you know that your target market likes golf, right, then you might be looking at golf sponsorships, or sponsoring a hole, or something like that, because you know that your target market likes golf and they're going to be at the golf course. So those are the types of questions you want to ask yourself, and really be sure that you're broadening your scope, not just who your target market is. And oh, by the way, who wants to be a target, right? Few people want to be the target. So, who is your ideal client, so that you can then, broaden that scope to be beyond just what the work is that you're doing. So for example, me as a business owner, sure, I do business development, sales, marketing, but I'm also a woman, right? So people are going to identify with me as a woman. So if I held a class, sales conversations for women entrepreneurs, then I'm going to reach my target market, because they're going to associate. Can I teach men? Of course, and I do. But again, it's just another aspect that they're going to identify with me as a business owner. I also have a really wonky genetic condition that makes me have a chronic illness all the time. And so I could reach people with chronic illness and teach them how to talk to their doctors, or to self advocate, or to get help from their care team, or whatever the case might be. So when you think about it that way, then it also broadens just beyond the work to say, what other parts of me are aligned with this target market, and where else could I go where I could find that commonality? So, when people feel like you've got something in common, that's a great way for the connection to start. I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that.
No
So
problem.
you mentioned twice that you spent a whole bunch of money to get some help, and it was actually hurt rather than help. Um, Talk a little bit about that, what you learned, and what you would do differently when you're
Mm,
looking for help.
sure, sure. So yeah, gosh, I would probably title that book My $10,000 Mistake. But quite honestly, it's part of what fueled me afterwards. But I went to a convention, a entrepreneurial convention down in Orlando, and I had never seen anything like it. It was like a big, like big party. There were workshops, of course, but then like there'd be a comedian, and then we'd have lunch out by the pool or something like that. I've never had that experience before, and I was just naive to the business model, which I came to find out was part of their business model. But at the end of the 3 days, they said, okay, now we have this program where all these things that you learned, we're going to teach you in this group coaching program. And it's $10,000. And you can pay up front, and here's this, or, so if you're really interested, go to this other room and we'll tell you more about it. And I was at a point that I don't want to say I was desperate, but I'm pretty open about my path with money as it comes to being an entrepreneur. And let's just say I was kind of starting to eyeball the bottom of the barrel, around that time. And I said, obviously, I'm not doing everything right because things aren't working. So let me see what this is all about. And I decided to join. So it was a year-long program where we had like an every other month in person, and we had live streams on the opposite months. It might have been quarterly in person. I can't remember. Tons of material, lots to learn. You got a couple of laser calls with some of their experts, blah, blah, blah. And so what I didn't know then is that the model that they taught worked spectacularly for the woman who developed the model. So it was what worked for her. And I can look back now and kind of laugh that if I had this knowledge then that I wouldn't have said yes. But she was, four-letter word dropping, loud mouth, uh, extrovert that couldn't be more different than I am. And so I've, in the end, like 6 months in, I knew this wasn't going to be working, but the contract I committed, it was really an awful feeling that I was stuck with this program 6 months in. So I trudged through and did my best to finish. What it did birth was they had a planning system as part of their program. It was awful. I mean, again, I oversaw a sales team, so I'm really good at business planning, sales planning, that type of thing. And so I'm like, this doesn't even make sense. Like I couldn't even do my homework because it just didn't make sense. And so I created my own planning system, and that was birthed. I call it Wealth Harvest, and I sell that now as a program. And it brings forth a more highly relational way of planning and moving through your business, and it harmonizes both logic and numbers, but along with like your intuition. And it's a little more earthy in terms of its approach. So for example, we don't say Q1, Q2, Q3. We say spring, summer, fall, winter. Like we use the seasons as type of an essence or a feeling of how we want to plan different seasons. So it's just a softer approach, but again, it's going to appeal to a particular target market who probably isn't type A, probably isn't going to be run a bazillion miles a minute. And again, no judgment there. It's just my market's a little different than others. And so that's one thing that came from it. And the other thing is my body of work. So when I came out of it, I was literally burnt out and almost literally broke when I came out of that program. And after kind of licking my wounds and suffering a little PTSD, believe it or not, I said there has got to be a better way. And then that's where I started looking at myself and how I wanted to relate with people and how I would want to be related with as a highly relational person. And again, that's how I then developed my business development body of work that I teach my entrepreneurs today.
Okay. So, I think one of the key things is there's a lesson in everything. And, even when there's challenging times, you take away those lessons. And that's why sort of sometimes your third business is the most successful because you've had more lessons. I created this, I don't know what you call it, but a framework called 3 Reasons to Market Like a Drug Dealer. So it's like
That's edgy.
Yeah, it's like marketing 101 because at least if you know these 3 things, they can help you significantly. So the first thing is they don't sell to everybody. So you shouldn't be trying to sell your stuff to everybody. They don't try to make anybody buy drugs either. They just offer them, and drugs sell themselves. So if you offer them to the right people, the drugs sell themselves. Same thing with your business. If you offer your product or service to the right people, it should almost sell itself, unless it's not the right product or solution for them, or you're not communicating it in the right way. So because a lot of times you think this is great, everybody could use it, but if it's not matching up to a problem they have right now, then they're not going to be the right target market for you. So first,
I couldn't agree more. Yep, I couldn't agree more.
So
exactly.
Yeah. The second one is drug dealers don't overpay for marketing. And when you have your own business, it's really easy to justify spending money on stuff because, it's for marketing, it's for sales, I'll make money. But many times you don't. So you got to be really careful about how much money you're spending, because it can go really fast. So you want to grow a market. There's so many things that you can do for low or no cost. So it's important to start there. And generally, you're going to know your business better than most other people. So you got to be careful who you're getting help from, because if they don't understand really your business, and they may have great things that have worked in different ways, but will it work for you?
Exactly.
And then the third one you'll like is drug dealers make friends. It's all about relationships. They get business, they have a relationship with their client. So even if you just know those three things and do them, you're going to be a lot more effective than if you don't.
Well, one of the things I say is a lot of times entrepreneurs are successful despite themselves. and so they're intuitively doing things, and a lot of times correctly. So I say, when you're unconscious about it, you can be mildly successful. But if you're conscious about it, you could be wildly successful. So if we can leverage that superpower that you have, and each of us have, there's a ton of, let's say, fractional CFOs out there, or like me, there's a ton of business coaches or sales coaches out there, but there is a certain specialty that's in your personality and your personhood that is going to be what draws out that person to say, you know what? I like that person. I want to talk to them more because I think we're going to be a fit. And whether they're consciously thinking that or not, it doesn't really matter. But if we don't let that come through, then that's not going to happen. So yeah, that's a part of it as well.
Okay, cool. So we do have a couple comments. So let me just pull them up real quick. So Jacqueline attended UPW, and there were things that didn't work logistically, but she took what worked away. And sometimes, you don't take the whole thing, but you take pieces.
Perfect.
I always say, you should be a student of business. So every time I go into a business, I look around and say, okay, what do I like that they're doing? What don't I like what they're doing? What can I learn from this? And there's no right of authorship. You can borrow whatever you want and incorporate it. So that's a great comment. And then we have a comment from okay, actually this is terrible, but okay. So we got a comment: start from within. Knowing what value you have to offer is important, or you'll be chasing your tail. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. When I think about Get Ready, Get Set, Flow, and that's the actual title of the book that I launched in 2020, I see that as part of the get ready part. When I think about the get ready part, you're really looking at your internal resources as a being, as a human being. And so a lot of people, when they step out into the world for the first time to sell themselves, it's a very uncomfortable thing. And one of the other things I say is, if you want the best personal growth course on the planet, start a business. Because all that stuff is going to be coming up along the way. And I work with my clients on that as well. I call it the BS, or the belief systems. So yes, it's really important that we understand the landscape, our inner landscape. Even things like your purpose and your vision, or how you want to live your life or your lifestyle. If you haven't thought through all of those things, then when you go to set the infrastructure for your practice, your business, your company, then you're missing out on an important part of your life. And I think one of the biggest pitfalls I made early on in my early 3 businesses was making my work the center of my life instead of making me the center of my life. So when we can do that, make ourselves the center and work is part of it, then it kind of takes the burden off our business to provide for us, because we're bringing in other um, aspects of our life that we're claiming are as important. And so it allows there to be a little bit of interplay. And that only happens if you kind of do a little bit of that inner acknowledgement of your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-value, and what you can, what you can bring to the table. Um, yeah, so I think that is a big part of it. And when we think about get ready, the get set part is that infrastructure that you mentioned as well. So if we can do the get ready, which is like shoring things up inside and our vision and our ideal life design, our big why or purpose, and then the get set part, setting up the infrastructure for your business operations, the way you want to market, the way you want to sell, your business development ecosystem, then it becomes like the software in the background where you've already decided how your business is going to be clicking along, like, clickety, clickety, click in the background. Because then the flow part is, then you go out and say, that networking event where everybody was doing spastic, networking, that they can now instead go and network and say, hey, you seem really cool. I have this luncheon every month on Fridays at the, I don't know, health club. And why don't you come join us one day? And so now you're leading people through that ecosystem that you've created. So it enables you to be more flowy in that, that step before the turn activities, because you've already set that framework up. So it's all connected. And then we can throw in nurture marketing, right? Because if we don't land a sale, then we don't want to lose that person, because they're probably still a fit for our psychographic. How are we staying in touch with them? How do we want to stay in touch with them? What do we want to do to them, in order to keep them in our ecosystem? So there's a lot that can be done to set that up so that things are flowing and just become a natural part of the operation of the business.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely. Nurturing is the next step. Once you know who your target is, you get your message to them, you develop your message, you communicate your message, and they indicate some interest. They're not ready to buy yet, but they have some interest in what you're saying. Then they become a lead rather than a prospect. And then once you have leads, you want to nurture them, because they're fairly likely to become a customer if you nurture them the right way. So definitely, that's key, what you're saying there, Christine, about figuring out how to nurture your leads. What are some ways to nurture leads? What are some things you recommend?
Yeah, there's so many things that you can do depending on budgets. And I do condone categorizing your leads, however you do it, ABC, hot, warm, cold, it doesn't matter. And do different things to different ones, because again, budget, and you can decide how you want to do that. I think one of the most powerful things we can do is to be aware of the industry or what our client is facing in their business or their industry. So to send them a blurb from an article that you read, or a link to an article that addresses something either they're facing or that's in their industry, is a really compelling thing. If we're only contacting our leads in order to follow up with their interest on, buying our stuff, then they're going to stop picking up the phone. They're going to stop opening the emails. So we want to make sure that a good part of that follow-up is pure resource generated. It might be you calling up that person and saying, when we met for lunch the other day, you said that you had trouble with your Volvo mechanic. And I was just talking to John yesterday, and he has a fabulous Volvo mechanic. I want to give you his number, right? It's not even related to business, but you're listening to the challenges that this human being is having, and it's going to make a mark in their mind that you're paying attention, to what is going on with them. The other things you can do are setting them up in connection with others. So if they had said in your meeting that they were really looking for a CPA to partner with for either their business, let's say, or themselves personally, teeing up that connection as well, and saying, I have a couple of CPAs in my business directory. Here, let me make that connection for you. So I think, again, I'm highly relational, and so that's the place that I go. Now, the other thing that stands out is snail mail. Yes, my friends, snail mail stands out. And one of my favorite business books is called The 7 Levels of Communication, by Michael Mayer. And he self-published that book. He's in the real estate industry, but the book is applicable to any service business. And I encourage everyone to read that book. It's written kind of like a story or a fiction novel, but all of the processes and things are kind of embedded in there. And he uses DISC, behavioral style, communication style, in his book as well. And I use that in my practice too. And so he actually talks about how to do the written note. There's, use a blue pen, write on a slant, make sure it's not printed, it's handwritten. There's a real stamp on the envelope. And why is all this important? Again, highly relational. It's unusual. I mean, think about the last time you actually received a note card in the mail from somebody. It just doesn't happen. So his book will tell you to acknowledge the person in the letter or in the note card and not sell at all. So the acknowledgement might be, John, it really struck me at our lunch yesterday how passionate you are about your industry. It really inspired me. Your passion really inspired me, and I wish you well in your business, and I'll follow up with you in 2 months like we discussed, something like that. But to really just acknowledge the person and a quality that they have. So again, when was the last time, forget in the workplace, but that somebody acknowledged a strength that you have? Probably never. So again, think about what could stand out. I know you're an author of a book, for example, and one of my clients, I actually ghost wrote her book for her, and it's a short book, but it's perfect for one of those cardboard mailers. And it was a great gift to send to people to say, hey, I met you at such and such, and here's 12 tips for your finances in my book. Please receive this book as my gift to you. And that's it. It was no solicitation. It's just, here's my book. So that's another way too.
Okay. No, definitely. Several years back, one of my mentors was like, you're always going to be successful because you follow up. Follow up is so important, and most people don't do a good job of follow up.
Very true.
And generally, before someone buys from you, you might have to touch base with them 7 to 12 times.
Yep.
So, when you're planning a market to someone, it's not just a one-time thing. And like you said, you want to differentiate yourself. You want to stand out. So by demonstrating, greater commitment and building a relationship with people, that can be powerful. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another way that you can set your framework up. So, your get ready, get set, the get set part. So if you're going to do 7 or 12 touches, what are you going to do at each of those touch points? Like, think about it ahead of time. And then you've got a checklist. I mean, it could be as analog as you want. You could print off a bunch of papers with checklists on it, and just say, have I done this step with each person, and watch it, or you could put it in your data if you have something online, whatever. But it is, when you standardize it, it just makes it more efficient. And quite honestly, what I find in terms of the psychological aspect of that for entrepreneurs is that it just becomes part of the operations. It's just like, this is just what we do, as opposed to it feeling kind of personal, and I might be bugging them, and like all of that stuff that, the stories that we start to create in our head about follow-up. And I will tell you, and oh, by the way, pick up the phone, actually call somebody to follow up. There's another differentiator. And because people don't do it, they're texting, they're emailing. And I know what my email box looks like. It's a scary place. So what's going to stand out? A voicemail, a phone call, that is definitely going to stand out. And there's even apps that you can use to go straight to voicemail if you don't want to talk to the person live, believe it or not. So use that. Just go straight to voicemail and have a little, framework for a script to leave the voicemail. So lots of options to stand out, very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's really about following up every so often. Like you said, if you have something of value, then you're not bothering them because you're helping them.
Exactly. And here's the other thing. Like, I'm a big fan because I am like this conversation expert. I have something that I call a spade communication, right? I am direct. I just want to know. I would rather know than not know, right? So I'll just say to somebody, is it okay if I follow up with you in a couple of weeks? Right? Just ask them, ask their permission. There's nothing better than permission, because then they're expecting it because they gave you permission, and they might say no. And that's okay too, because guess what? It saves you time. Return on time and investment is one of the biggest issues, especially for service entrepreneurs today. So yeah, take that person off the list if they're really not interested, move on to the next.
Yep, definitely. So time's always flying when we're having fun. So we're getting close to the 9 o'clock hour. So we don't want to keep people too late, but definitely, we covered a lot of good stuff. And before we tune out, it would be great if you could just share, 3 key things that people should take away from what we talked about today that they can start implementing in their business tomorrow. So we'll take a quick commercial break, and then we'll be back with Christine Clifton, and she's going to share 3 things to take away to work on starting tomorrow. Cool. Okay. If you are looking to increase revenues, improve profitability, and or obtain financing for your business, you need to check out the Power Breakfast and Small Business Pro conferences.
My name is Andrew Frazier. One of the things we're here to do is supercharge your day.
Today's Power Breakfast has really been a phenomenal experience. I think it's exactly what business owners need, some true guidance of people who are genuine and really are leading them in the true direction of business growth and expansion.
The Power Breakfast is so important for the entrepreneurial community because it gives the various business people who come together an opportunity to interact and also do some business.
These events, hosted by Andrew Frazier, President and COO of Small Business Like a Pro, will supercharge your day.
Okay, great. So hopefully you can join us on the 27th at the Power Breakfast. I'll put the link in the chat, and we'll go from there. But right now I'm here with Christine. She's going to share 3 key things to take away from tonight. So take it away, Christine.
Yes, and before I do, that commercial's awesome, by the way. Like the music, I have to be at that Power Breakfast. Too bad I live in North Carolina. Um, all right. I think the first thing that I would want you to take away is what I mentioned about the ecosystem and setting up ecosystems. If you think through where you're going to take people at each phase of your in-person marketing, networking to one-on-ones, classes, workshops, if you do that into the sales conversation, then it's going to make it just run so much more seamlessly for you. And it's magical. I'm going to tell you, it's magical when you think ahead. You're going to be much more efficient, and your conversion rates are going to go through the roof. And that's what I like. I like efficiency, right? So every hour that I spend, I want to get the maximum benefit of my hour of time. And by doing the ecosystem, you can do that. Secondly, is that it's really is important, in my opinion, to ensure that you're including your lifestyle and how you want to live, your purpose, your vision, all of that into what you're creating in terms of your life, so that your business isn't carrying the full burden of providing for you. So when you whirl back that lens and say, okay, I've got my business, but I also have my family, I've got my faith community, I've got my, local soup kitchen, or I've got, fill in the blank. It's important to weight all of that, because your being moving through this world is what's of value. It's you that's of value. And so when you can recognize that everywhere you bring your being brings value, then your business is just one other place where you're bringing value. And I think you can reduce your stress with that and really look at your life as a whole, and you'll have a bit more freedom, a bit more fulfillment than you might be having now. And that can be a big transition to do. Lastly, the title of this interview is Get Ready, Get Set, Flow. And it's a little different than the ecosystem. Like the get ready part is, like I said, that inner look first. Shore up what your strengths are, decide what it is you want to offer. What are the purpose, the why, all of that. The next step is deciding what those systems are that are going to run in the background, that you're going to automatically put in place, so that you know what you're going to do to who as you go and build your business, because that's what sets you up for flow. So when you have that support of both the set step and the ready step, then the flow step is you being able to kind of be a little more free. I mean, I think most of us start our business because we're looking for freedom. We want to get out from under the man, let's say at a traditional job. So the freedom of flow is allowing yourself to really enjoy the activities that you're choosing to put yourself in. And your enjoyment is going to radiate out from your being. People are going to be more drawn to you. You're already going to know where you're taking them in your business, because you've done that supportive work for yourself. And that's also a real magical thing to gift yourself with, is the get ready, get set, flow concept of your business.
Okay, great. So definitely 3 important things to take away. Efficiency, because time is money. Your business shouldn't be your life. Your business should be there to benefit your life. So that's important, to have that distinction and making sure that you know what you want out of the business, and that you focus on getting what you want out of the business. And then finally, you have to have support systems. Definitely having processes and procedures and consistency is very important for successful business. So these are all things that we can work on every day. Look at what you're doing. How can I be more efficient? Is my business serving my life the way I want it to? do I have the right systems in place to run my business the way it needs to be run? So these are outstanding, Christine, and thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight, talking small business.
Oh, you're welcome. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, great. Anything you want to leave the audience with before we close out?
Gosh. Well, I would just say if you're interested in that wealth harvest program, which is really that get ready, get set, flow concept of those, systems and the ecosystem, then it's on my website. Go look at it, the wealth harvest. It's a self-study program. It can get you started tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. So just go to my website. It's on my shop page.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you. Hang out for a minute while I close things out. And let's take a look. So, another great week of Leadership Live. Christine really covered some important things that we need to think about so that we can be more successful on the marketing and sales side of our business. So, as you know, each week we have great guests. And next week, our topic is going to be you don't need unicorns, you need systems. So, really about, how to create processes and systems so that you can develop, you don't have to have superheroes to run the business. You can bring people in, and that's the only way you can get your business to run without you successfully. And that's really the goal of most business owners. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that successfully. So looking forward to having Beverly Rasmussen in the house. And that's what we're going to be talking about. You don't need unicorns, you need systems. So as you know, in business, at the end of the day, the more that you know, the more successfully your business is going to grow. Thanks and take care.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.